I simply don't think there's going to be another camera this year. Maybe Sony might offer something comparable, but there's not going to be something out there that's going to beat this camera, Welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. Well, that didn't take long. So not much long after Canon announced their R5 and R6 to a lot of excitement and also to some hotly debated disappointments, Sony has now answered with their long-awaited Sony Alpha A7S III. This is by far something that is going to really change the landscape for a lot of creators out there, especially YouTube content creators, because looking at everything that it provides and also watching a lot of these Sony A7S III videos, I could safely say that this is going to be the best YouTube camera for a lot of people out there. And now this one truly could be very well the perfect camera. And I'll probably say that again on the next camera, but at least for now, the Sony Alpha A7S III dominates when it comes to everything that a YouTube content creator would want and need, and then some. So let's go ahead and look at some of the biggest features that this has. And BH Photo has a lot of those features right here. So we have a 12.1 megapixel sensor. This can record 4K 10-bit 422 internal up to 120 frames per second. It's a 9.4 million dot OLED EVF, which is the highest so far for a mirrorless camera. It can do super crazy low light, and this says up to ISO 409,600, which is insane. And then, thank goodness, it has a fully articulating touchscreen. And of course, it has Sony's world-renowned, super fast autofocus. And then another super huge thing that a lot of people have been waiting for from Sony is a touchscreen menu that actually allows you to use your menus and many other functions out of just using autofocus. And at the same time, they revamped their menu. This is one of the biggest problems that a lot of Sony users had. And besides the fact that most of their cameras do not have a fully articulating screen, and this could also do raw 16-bit output via a full-size HDMI. Now, those main features alone, I think for a YouTube content creator, is going to be pretty much the holy grail of everything that you would want. Other things that this camera does so well is when it does 4K, it could do 4K 60 frames up to an hour without the dreaded overheating. And I'm going to get into that right now because this is something that a lot of people are going to be talking about because of the fact that Canon R5 and R6 having these overheating issues pretty much stopped it from being a perfect camera for a lot of creators out there, especially when it comes to the long form content. But the Sony Alpha A7S III is not going to have that problem. Now, you can technically cause this to overheat. I've seen a lot of creators use it in many different environments in real world use. And the general consensus is for everyday use, even after using it more than a few hours, in some cases 3 to 4 to 5 hours, the battery would die out before they ever got any type of warning that it's going to overheat, or before it ever even overheated at all. And for most of them, they never even got that message. And even when it did overheat, when they intentionally made it overheat, it only took about 15 minutes to 20 minutes for this camera to be usable again. Whereas with the Canon R5 and R6, yeah, good luck on that. It could take you a few hours stuffing the camera in a refrigerator or using all types of crazy things to get it to cool down. And that's not even talking about all the other technical things that this camera can do. But at least, in my opinion, just everything that this has, this is what YouTube content creators want. I mean, some things are really simple, like having a flip out screen, having really reliable autofocus, those things alone, I think, should be something that all camera manufacturers should have, and it's not like it's impossible because a lot of these camera manufacturers do offer that. It just seems like with every single camera, there's always some cripple factor. But with the Sony Alpha A7S III, I really can't think of any when it comes to a pure YouTube content creator. And about the only knock on this, or maybe there's two of them, one of them is the fact that this does use a 12 megapixel sensor. But the one thing you have to understand is not about the megapixel size. It's what they're going to do with it. And Sony has different lines for different users. And by using this sensor at this size, it allows them to do a lot of things. And some of the main things it allows it to do is get really amazing low light performance. It allows it to do 4K at 120 frames per second. You could do this utilizing pretty much the whole sensor. And at the same time, you could also shoot at these high frame rates and still get audio. So having a low resolution definitely gives it a lot of advantages. And of course, whenever you have it at this lower resolution, it's going to do the one thing that it's really hard for Canon to do and a lot of other manufacturers, and that is to keep the heat dissipation, keep the overheating down. Sony uses a number of new cooling technologies without having a fan, but just having a lower megapixel sensor helps a ton. And so all of those things combined really make it an ideal choice for a lot of video content creators out there. And not having to worry about overheating and being able to have unlimited recording, except for maybe the 4K 120. I think you get like 40 minutes. On all the other modes, you have unlimited recording. And so that's really something that a lot of creators, whether they're on YouTube or indie filmmakers, will really appreciate. For serious YouTubers, check out TubeBuddy, the premier tool news at geekoutdoors.com. Get more done today by checking out the affiliate link in the description area below. And then another thing it has the CF Express Type A. So this is a brand new format. Now CF Express is very expensive, but what Sony smartly did here is they made these dual card slots where it could not only do this brand new CFS Express Type A, but it could also do standard SD cards. And with this capability, you're able to do dual recordings and have backups and not have to be forced to use the more expensive cards unless you wanted to use it. And so those are just amazing features. It's got better image stabilization, and also they don't have this whole problem, with a rolling shutter like they did with the previous cameras. And there's just so many great things with this camera. And it practically has a wish list of everything I think a lot of YouTube content creators would want. Now, with all of it being said, all the praise that it has out there, if I had to think of some negatives, the first negative is, if you want to use this camera for photography and you need it to have big pictures, at higher resolutions, then this might not be for you. But, as I said earlier, this is not meant for, primarily for photography. It's meant for videography. And then the other thing is, of course, the price. With all this powerful technology, all these great features, it's not going to be cheap. And so this is $3,498 US. And let me see if it comes with the lens. I don't think it does, but let's see. Yeah, let me see. Yep, no lens. Okay, so you're gonna have to get a lens separately. So if you get it as a bundle, let's see. Well, you could get it with different lenses. So let's just say if you got it with the 24mm, yeah. So it's gonna be about $5,000. Okay, so this is not a cheap camera, and I'm thinking right now, this is gonna be their flagship for their video mirrorless camera. What I'm thinking Sony is gonna do is they're going to take a lot of the main features of this camera and then put it in a lower end model and maybe price it around the $2,000 range. And that, I think, would be an awesome thing to do, because at that point you're pretty much taking out Panasonic as well, because so many YouTube content creators have used the GH5 for their content creation. And the main drawback with pretty much all the Lumix cameras is their autofocus. But at the same time, it also takes out other competitors like Fuji, Nikon, Canon, anybody wanting to, compete in that range, like the prosumer type range where you're looking at $1,000 to $2,000. If Sony was to come out with a lower end model at that price range, which I think they will, they pretty much lock the whole market, because they already have, their budget level ones. They have their ZV-1, and they have their photography lines, their R4, if I remember, is that the name? But they have many other cameras spanning every type of use case. And with this one being the top end video one, if they could produce a one that's lower end, but still retain a lot of the best features of the A7S III, then Sony's going to be the best camera provider out there, specifically for YouTube content creators and just content creators in general. So those are my thoughts on the Sony Alpha A7S III. I'm completely blown away by this, and it's supposed to come out at the end of September. And so that gives me some time to think of some way where I could donate my body or something so I can afford this. So that is it for this particular video. If you actually had any thoughts on the Sony Alpha A7S III or the Canon R5 or 6 or any other cameras that you are interested in, be sure to leave that in the comments area below. And if you want to see more of my camera thoughts, tips, and tutorials, I do have an entire playlist. I'll leave that in the description area as well. So as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hey geeks, if you are a creative geek like me and you wanted to learn how to create content on YouTube and other places on the internet, then check out my Go Content Creators group, where you'll get access to additional videos and content for all the creative geeks out there. And the best part of it is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and sign up for my Go Content Creators group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side.